I'm Laird, joining you today from Grand Pacifica, Nicaragua. And I've got my good friend, formerly known as Alex Navarro, now known as Alex. Please take it away.
Golodriga.
Thank you. There's no way I could say that. Even maybe if I'd had a few cocktails, I could. Alex and I go way back. We've done tons of podcasts together. We've actually worked. I would send Alex people that needed their macros more dialed in. She has a ton of experience working, with fitness competitors. We both tend to attract the hard charging, burned out, overachieving female. That would be our main bread and butter. I haven't talked to her for a while, so this is kind of for selfish reasons. I wanted to catch up with her. Alex, now, when I first met Alex, she was were you competing in figure at the time, or you were kind of in that kind of scene?
Yes, fitness and bikini.
Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. So she was doing that kind of stuff, and now she's gone down the mom path. So why don't you kind of fill us in, like, how things have changed in your life since you've kind of become a mom, and how it's really what it's meant for your business, and not only that, but understanding your clientele.
That's a lot of questions in that one.
You got as much time as you need. I'm just gonna sit and listen.
Okay, well, I'll start from the beginning. Like you said, I competed in competitions for 7 years. I started my mid 20s, which was really rare back. This was, a long time ago now. Very rare for someone my age to be competing. I just turned 40 last week, so this was a long time ago. And I was working with clients at the time. I was personal training. I was also doing nutrition coaching. That's sort of how I fell into the type of nutrition coaching that I do now, having experienced tons of bad diets in my competitive years and trying to find something that was actually sustainable and healthy, but also that allowed me to achieve the physique goals that I had and the performance goals, because I did fitness. So I had the performance component to the competition as well. And I was working with clients at the time, and I thought that I understood most of the women that I was working with, especially moms, but I didn't really realize who I was working with and what that difference was until I became a mom. So I had my son 6.5 years ago, and it was completely life-changing in all the amazing ways that having a child is. But it was also really hard, having to prioritize somebody else over yourself. For me, exercise and movement has always been therapeutic for me. I used it as a way to manage, process emotions when I was younger. I was always been into exercise and movement. It's just always worked for me in navigating challenges in life. So postpartum, having a different body. I mean, I experienced that a little bit during pregnancy, but I was fortunate to have a very smooth pregnancy. So I still was able to train in a lot of the ways that I liked, and that felt good for me. Postpartum was different, and not because my body had a hard time, which it had its normal postpartum recovery that I went through, but it was the lack of sleep. That was like the hugest difference. Talk about not being able to train the way you want when you're not rested and recovered. But then I was breastfeeding too. So I was trying to navigate the nutrition side of things to fuel and support that output, while also trying to fuel myself, which was a huge experiment that I never feel like I fully figured out, to be honest.
Well, you and the baby you and the kid are still alive, right?
Everyone's thriving.
So there you go. You figured it out.
Exactly.
It's perfect.
Exactly. So that first year, there were just the challenges of balancing it all, taking care of myself in new ways with the resources and the time and the energy that I had. So huge experiment on the training side of things, volume wise, what my body could handle, what felt good to me, what was continued to be therapeutic. And, during that postpartum time, the hormones are changing, you're tired, you're sleep deprived. So emotionally, it was also a very different experience. So having emotions that I'm trying to sift through, all of the different feelings that new moms, I think, experience, wanting to go out and train and take care of myself, but then feeling guilty when I leave the baby at home, and all of that. That first year was just a big experiment. And again, we're all alive and surviving and thriving at this point. So I feel like that experiment went well.
And particularly for somebody as high level of an athlete as you were and are, having a giant car bomb go off inside you, your entire, canister is rearranged. That is very, very humbling. Particularly, you weren't a spring chicken. You weren't in your early 20s when you had your first child. So your body just doesn't bounce back as fast as it would if you were younger. So that's got to be really difficult when, all of a sudden things just don't feel as stable or as strong as they used to, or, your back's bothering you a little bit, and having to be patient enough to get all that stuff going in the right direction and not rushing. That must be very frustrating as well.
Very frustrating. Yeah. It's like a new body. So I'm trying to get to know my new body and get to know this new person who I'm 100% in charge of.
Sure.
It's very interesting. Yeah. I outsourced a lot of support, which will continue to be a theme over the next 6 years and moving forward forever. Support. What kind of support do I need? In what areas? Feeling confident in what I know, but also knowing what I don't know, and finding the right people that can give me that support. So I had lactation support. I had nutrition people that I bounced ideas off of. I read. I have a thirst for knowledge. So I've always been intrigued by new information around the body, training, nutrition, all of that. So, I dove right into like how to feed a baby. We're introducing foods. I need to know everything that there is about nutrition for babies. So again, that process was fun also, because I did learn a lot, and I developed a new appreciation for moms. I literally emailed numerous of my old mom clients apologizing, saying, I'm sorry that I did it. I thought that I understood and I did not. It was a disservice to you to think that I had any idea what I was talking about. I get it now. I'm sorry. So, but the plus side of that is I learned a lot, and I was then able to help other moms in a new way that I didn't have access to before.
That's great. And I think that's, the thing is too, you put yourself in a situation where you were allowed to step back from your career a little bit. There's a lot of women that don't have the ability to do that. You said with your second child, how long did it take you to get out of like the postpartum kind of funk, I guess? Would that be a fair assessment of that?
I would say haze.
Haze? Okay.
Haze. Okay. Everything's a little hazy. Still navigating the sleep. Now I have 2 children and 2 big dogs. It's a lot of balls in the air. And I'm okay with juggling, but I'm not great at it.
I gotcha. I understand. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, you literally set things in motion in your life so that you could step back. There's a lot of people that have all these things going on in their life and they don't have that support. So it's super, super important. And I've dealt with this for years. Like one of Rachel Matthews, who we both worked with, mother of 3, working 60 hours a week, and is, wonders why she's gaining weight, and then starts, is told to train more, and it's just our society in general. The self-care side of things is just not emphasized at all. So how has your perspective changed on how you implement things with clients based on your personal experience now?
Well, in that first year, I kind of going back to pre-babies, I thought I knew what self-care was. Right. I had my routine. I had the things that made me feel good, that made me feel whole, complete, fulfilled, all of that. And that, again, the priority shifted when my son was born. So it was not a matter of finding new self-care. It was, okay, what are the tools that I had before? What do I still have access and time for now that'll give me the biggest ROI? Investment on time, because I don't have a lot of it. So a lot of that first year was establishing and figuring out and experimenting with different types of self-care that filled my cup, that nourished me, that allowed me to then continue on with the other things that I had to do. So some days I had time for a lot of different self-care tools, and other days I had time for one. So this is a tool that I've used with clients since that point, and I sort of refined it over the years, but especially now after baby number 2, because I have even less time. And I've built out, using biofeedback, I've built out a self-care hierarchy.
Okay.
So I have my list of self-care tools that in an ideal world, I had, access to all of those on a daily basis. Here they are. And then I'll prioritize those based off of my ROI. So what's the one thing that I could do today that'll give me the best, most bang for my buck? For me, sleep. Number one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime of the day, take a nap, lay down, even if it's non-rest, deep sleep, which I love. 10 minutes, lay down, close my eyes, put on some soft music. That little bit of rest, a little bit of downtime, or an extra sleep at night, if that I have access to that. That's my number one. My number 2 is fueling myself. Number 3 is movement. Sometimes I might flip-flop those depending on the day. And then I have other tools that I use, reading, alone time, but I'll prioritize those. I know what that pyramid looks like for me. So I'll help clients establish or figure out what their tools are, and then what that hierarchy looks like. So in your ideal scenario, ideal day, I have access to all of this, and I can hit all of these things a little bit. So I have my cup full, my energy is there from sleep and recovery. I'm nourished. I've moved my body in a way that feels good and therapeutic, but also that might help me get to my goals. But then on a day where, maybe the kids woke up multiple times, or I just had a bad night's sleep. Okay, if I don't have access to sleep, what's the next best thing that I can do for myself today? And then so on and so forth. So I'll use the biofeedback tools to help them figure out based off of whatever their body's telling them on any given day, which can take time. I have a client who might be able to figure that out in a month. And I have another client who might take a year to figure that out.
What biofeedback tools do you use?
So we'll do sleep. So I have a questionnaire that I'll have clients figure out. And usually with a client, I'll have them pick 1 or 2 areas of biofeedback. I don't want to overwhelm them. It's a lot of work to gather data, right? And people get confused with the minutia. So they'll gather data, and then I'll help them decipher it. So it might be sleep. It might be appetite. It might be cravings. So if you're craving certain things at certain times of the day, or you find yourself at the end of the day craving crunchy, I can help you identify what's causing that urge or that desire. So from there, then we can backtrack and say, well, if you're feeling depleted because you have been going all day long, your output is extensive during the day, you're depleted at the end of the day of energy, of resources. So a lot of women who want that crunchy, they're trying to fill their tank. And maybe that's just a habit that they've had for a long time, and it's worked for them. Because they feel better afterwards, even if it's not supporting them. So if we can figure out what's driving that, then we can experiment with other tools to help fill their cup, or help them to, get the energy back or fulfill themselves in some way. For one client, it might be taking a walk by themselves in silence, 10 minutes around the block, no stimulation. Someone, it might be a podcast because they like that information. So they're getting the movement, but they're also getting the information. I'm like a silent, alone walker. I like thrive with alone time. I can't get that a lot in the house because there's people here. So I got to leave.
I get it. Did you find that when your kids took naps, you took naps too? Yeah, because I know there's a lot of women will try and get everything done they need to get done while their kids are napping, and I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, I want to sleep too, So I don't know, to each their own, I guess. But
some people aren't good nappers. I'm like a professional napper. I could, if that could be a job, I would excel at it. I could wake up after 20 minutes and feel great.
I had a float tank in my gym there for a while, and I think I put it in just after the seminar we did there, and I used to float. I tried floating before my afternoon sessions, like during my break, And one time I floated for 90 minutes. I was so relaxed I couldn't coach. So then I figured out I could only float for 10 minutes, and that was it. So yeah, there's a lot of self-experimentation and things like that going along with it. What do you do for people? Obviously, you know, like the dietary templates and the things that you've used in the past, and I imagine you still use, are so simple. And I imagine that's the real big thing, is simplifying cooking in bulk, or hiring a meal service to help you kind of streamline things, to make things more efficient for you.
Absolutely. Huge difference. I mean, we always want to overcomplicate things, I feel like.
Right. Sure.
Make things, you know, and I think some people get stuck in the mindset of, you know, meals need to be pretty or fancy or complicated. And yet there's a time and a place. And I love cooking. There's a time and a place for me to like make a marinade and marinate the meat earlier in the day and then get it in, you know, and make all the things. And I enjoy that, and I'll do it when I can, but that's not realistic every day. So I'll usually.
How do you approach eating with your children, as far as them? Like, I don't know if, you know, what social events they go to or their social circles. How have you handled that as far as real food versus, you know, the processed garbage that most kids are being fed? Like, how have you handled that?
It's a lot. It's a big answer. We could have a whole podcast on
that. We got about half an hour. Go for it.
Well, I mentioned earlier, I really got interested in nourishment for babies, nourishment for young kids. And, you know, I know the importance of micronutrients and macros and pairing meals to help with blood sugar regulation. So I use that as my baseline. And then I tend to just only have whole food sources. You know, we have our snacks, but they're simple ingredient snacks. And so we sort of have rules, or guidelines, I'd rather say, because I try to stay away from rules of what types of things we bring into the house. And then when we're out of the house, what our best choices are given the scenarios. And now it's nice because my son's at an age where I can explain things to him now. You know, before he didn't understand. He's like, now he goes protein. He rolls his eyes at me. I'll eat protein, Mom. But I've given him the tool. I know. Given him the tools. You know, we're starting this process where he is accessing biofeedback. He's listening to his body. When he says, this bothers me or that, I said, well, did you drink water today? Have you tried drinking water? Did that help? You know, I'm giving him the tools now to start listening to his body and seeing what things feel like when I eat these types of things at home, or when I go to a birthday party and eat pizza. You know, so I allow him to do those things when he's out, and then I ask him how it made him feel. And that way he can ultimately make his own decisions around it. And I explain why we don't have certain things at home, or we do like Halloween, you know, go get all the candy that you want. And then we'll come home and we'll say, these are why we won't be eating these. You know, we stay away from food coloring and things like that. And I'll give him other alternatives to have. And it's great because now he'll go to a birthday party and he might eat what's there, because otherwise he won't eat. And then hangry is a whole different scenario with 6-year-old. But he might get this happened a couple of weeks ago. He came home with, you know, a goodie bag from the party, and half of it was candy. And he says, and he brought it to me and he's like, here, do you want to look at what's in there and see what I can have? So I'll pull out what he can, and then I'll maybe throw in something that he can, and he gets the treats. Yeah. They're just within reason. And then we talk about how that made you feel.
Well, and the cool thing is you're leading by example. And that's really, from what I've observed with children, that's what's most important, right? Because the kids are going to do what their parents do. And if the parents are eating garbage, the kids are going to eat garbage. And then the kids really don't know what it feels like to feel good. Like, if all you've eaten was goldfish and, like, you know, garbage your whole existence, you go to that birthday. But if you've eaten like real food, like I imagine your kids eat a lot of steak and chicken and fish and, you know, all sorts of different really cool stuff, like real food, right? And they go to a birthday party and they have a piece of chocolate cake and they're like, ugh, that tasted really good, but it just, I didn't feel right after it, right? Mm-hmm. But if all you've eaten is McDonald's and Cane's and cereal and sugar and garbage, like, that piece of chocolate cake, you're just gonna, it's not gonna make you feel any different than what you're normally used to feeling, right?
Yep, exactly.
So many kids today, they don't go outside, they don't eat, real food, and so they don't know what it's like to actually feel good.
Yeah.
Which your kids are very lucky to have someone that actually takes care of themselves, and the apple doesn't usually fall far from the tree. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also I communicate when something bothers me, or if I, something, I have a steak, like, oh, my body's so happy right now with my decision of eating this,
right,
because it has X, Y, and Z in it. And I think my body really needs that right now. Or the opposite, we had a movie night and we ate an entire bag of popcorn between the two of us. And afterwards I said, I'm really full. I think I ate too much popcorn. He said, I think I did too, Mom. We should probably put the bag away. Again, leading by example, just communicating what I'm experiencing and how I'm like, that's so interesting. No judgment around it, just curiosity. And I'm trying to instill like curiosity in him. Like he came out, I have a headache right back here. What do you think that's from? Well, let's figure it out. That's fun. So This age I actually really like, because he's very inquisitive and he's asking a lot of really thoughtful questions. And I feel like I can actually give him the information now.
Just remember these years when he's like 15 or 16 and he's telling you that he hates you. Well, usually boys don't tell their mother that
he already does that, so we're fine.
Oh, okay. So you got that out of the way already. That's great.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, at least he's gotten it out of the way while you still have a physically dominating presence over him.
It's true. We actually have this conversation a lot. I'm like, you're lucky I'm stronger than you, and I will be for a very long time. So you better work on yourself.
One day that's gonna change quickly.
It will.
So
yeah. And then with my daughter, she's almost 2, so she's at the point where she still eats anything I put in front of her, which is great. And at this point, we're just experimenting with a wide range of food items. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Have you noticed that children intuitively kind of eat what they really need?
Yeah. If given the option of healthy choices.
Correct.
I've noticed, I put a bag of chips out and they'll just devour it.
Well, of course. Because people don't understand, like, those chips are designed to pull all the triggers in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
That it's salty, it's fatty. It tells that it pulls all those triggers in your brain that say calories with lots of nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the food companies know exactly how to make your brain want those things, and then you eat it, and your brain's like, "What do you mean? All these tastes and the salt and the lime flavor and all these things it's supposed to be nutrient dense, but there's nothing in there." Right. So don't turn off the appetite. Eat more. So. But I was always amazed when I've been around children that if you have like real food there, like they will gravitate towards the things that are the most nutrient dense most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Steak, shrimp, things like that. It's pretty interesting. How has your training changed, and how has your goals changed as far as what you're trying to accomplish? I mean, obviously it sounds like being a mom and being a good mentor is your number one priority, and then if you have time, you can help some of your clients, and by helping yourself, you help your clients. But talk to me a little bit about how things have changed over the last couple of years as far as your goals and as far as your what you're trying to accomplish for yourself and for your kids and family.
Well, let me start with the movement side, because again, that's been such an important key self-care tool for me. My entire life is movement of some kind. And I love challenging myself in physical ways, especially during hard times. I would say, 2020 really was an opportunity to experiment with self-care tools when you don't have access to a lot of the other things that you might have utilized before, like,
Sure.
being connection, all of that. And I had a lot of health issues at that point. I'll just mention it here, but it's a long story for another time. I had breast implants that gave me a really, really hard time for a lot of years. And I got them taken out the Thursday before we sheltered in place, not knowing we were going to be sheltering in place. So I spent that first part of 2020 recovering with with a lot of complications following that explant surgery. So now I'm
Sure.
trying to navigate being at home, dealing with the world, while also dealing with my own personal health struggles. So I didn't have access to the movement like I normally would have been one of my go-tos. Because the movement for me serves two purposes. It's alone time. Like, I'm a solo trainer. I like training by myself. It's my time to be with me, connect with myself, my breath, my body. But then I also get the movement component in the challenge, which fulfills another thing for me. So not having access to either of those because I'm trapped at home with everybody. There's nowhere to go. And now I can't move my body in ways that feel good and that nourish me and nurture, whatever is going on here and here. Sure. So I had to really tune into other tools, or move my body in ways that, gave me those small doses, but didn't hurt what I was trying to recover from, which was very hard. It was a very stressful time for everybody. And once that started to get better, my goal at that point was just to get back into movement in slow and steady ways. And that took a lot of experimenting with, again, where my body had gone through and the trauma response that I was getting from my body and certain movement patterns. So it took me another year to kind of get through that. A lot of experimentation, a lot of patience, a lot of self-love, not getting frustrated with myself over what I expected myself to be able to do. Again, having been a top athlete, doing all these crazy tricks and gymnastics and whatnot, and then having a hard time walking up the hill. Yeah. Very humbling. So I would say from that point around 2021 going into 2022, I was just trying to get my body back to a place that I recognized. I didn't expect myself to be able to do all of the stuff that I had once done at that point, just trying to get to a baseline that felt good, that felt maintainable, that gave me access to things that were important to me, like carrying my kids around, walking up. We lived in a very hilly area at the time, walking up down the hill with the kids or the dogs and not, having to stop to catch my breath, being able to throw my son on my shoulders if he wanted to be carried and not feeling like, hey, I can't do that, or I'm going to get too tired, or I'm going to hurt myself. Carrying all the grocery bags in at the same time, because who wants to make trips back and forth? I really wanted functional day-to-day things that just made me feel good in my body. Sure. So I did that 2021, and then mid-2021, I got pregnant with my daughter, which was on purpose. But that was also part of my goal, knowing that I wanted that to happen. Okay, at what point can I get my body to that I can go into a pregnancy feeling strong, capable, hopefully avoiding any, the common issues that women find when they're pregnant, because they're not, they didn't sort of prepare their vessel ahead of time.
Sure. And me, speaking from experience, you being a high level fitness competitor, high level, gymnastic skills, when you go from that to not being able to do much, like when I was, I got in a car wreck about 2 years ago, I had a traumatic brain injury, and I had problems walking and talking. And there's nothing worse than that for somebody who's been at a high level athletically, to have that taken away from you. It's very difficult because it's very hard for you to accept that you just can't do the things that you could do with ease before, and that you have to start from ground zero. And because I've had that happen to me a number of times, it makes it a lot easier for me to empathize with people that are in a bad place. Because a lot of people that are just naturally athletically gifted, who've never had those kind of struggles before, they really can't relate to somebody who literally is having problems, standing up and down off the toilet, or getting on the floor, or you just can't. Some of my older clients that I've had, they're just I really would just love to get down on the floor and play with my grandkids, and lowering the level of training to that level to allow them to be able to do that. Most people just can't relate or even understand that, particularly people in the fitness industry. Yeah. So going through those experiences makes it a lot easier for you to relate to people that are in a really bad place.
Absolutely. Well, it opens up a whole new range of ways to train, ways to move your body, ways to make your body feel safe. so that you can go into experiment with different modalities. And that was another way that I outsourced. I was having nerve issues, so I sought out someone who could help me with that. I learned a lot along the way. I sort of I'm like, okay, I'm dealing with this. What can I learn? And then how can I apply that to other people?
Yeah. Sickness and challenge is one of the best teachers ever. And most people don't. Most people just like kind of woe is me. Like every time I've gotten injured, or I've had a business fail, or I've had, relationships go bad, or, I've always looked at it, or I have a health issue. I'm like, what can I learn from this, and how can I use it to help other people? Mm-hmm. And I've always come out on the other side, a better person and able to help more people. So I think a lot of people would be served, to be in a much better place if they took that kind of attitude of like, okay, what can I learn? And that's essentially what life is like overcoming these challenges time and time again, over and over and over again, right? And we've had some big ones in the last few years, that's for sure. You were in California during the whole beer bug, right? Are you still in California? How are you still in California?
I mean, ultimately it's because my husband owns a business here, and it's
right.
We're not at the point now where we could move it. So
I've got you. Okay. So that's a good answer.
To the point we're doing business here, which it's getting harder already. But that would be the reason.
That's a whole another show unto itself. And that's a good way for us to get kicked off YouTube. So exactly. We'll just stop right there.
Yes. So. But anyways, yes, big, very, very challenging in every way possible. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yes. But kind of what you said too, just a minute ago around, you've gone through these experiences, you've gathered new tools to support, recovery, being at a different point in what you're physically able to do. Right. I definitely still had moments of like feeling sorry for myself and being frustrated and annoyed and like, why did this happen? How, what did I do? Guilt, shame, all of that. All of those conversations, still came up along the way, and it's nice to be able to know that you can have all those feelings, move through them, and then you come out better again on the other side of it. But you're also better able to sympathize and empathize with clients who've experienced that, of like, you want to have a pity party today? Let's do it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned it from my kids. You want to have a tantrum? Here, let's do it. Right. Okay, now we're over it. Moving on.
That's really what you need to do. I mean, it's you need to experience it and move on. It's a lot of people get caught in that pity party and they never ever come out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's the challenges are always a very, very, very interesting thing, and particularly a lot of people like to blame other people, right? And the one thing I've learned, particularly the last couple of years, is always looking within myself first, and understanding, oh yeah, there's some other things that might have affected some things, but in the end, I'm the one that has to make the decision. And like, you knew me when I was in my, probably, early mid 30s, when I was still pretty intense. And I do Tai Chi now every day, multiple times a day, which if you'd have told me that Jim Laird back then, you'd have been like, what the hell? Like, why would you do that? Mm-hmm. And it's just it's so freeing for me to be able to relax and float, because I spent so many years trying to get stiff and rigid and angry and revved up. And now I still lift. It's not like I don't lift weights, and I'm stronger than the majority of people. It's not even close, right? That doesn't mean I still don't lift weights. I do that, but I don't need to be this wound up, super amped guy all the time. Now I go outside and I'm flowing and I'm breathing and I'm doing all this stuff. And of course the locals here look at me like it's crazy gringo again. But it's totally different. Like I never in my wildest dreams, 10 or 15 years ago, that I envisioned myself doing Tai Chi on the beach. Mm-hmm. It's actually, I'm sure somebody's going to film it sometime and post it. It looks really funny. Me trying to move, like, one's called like shoot tiger with bow, so you're like breathing in, you're opening up and you're pulling your shoulder blade together, and then you're exhaling and you're reaching, you're letting the bow go. So you're moving in different ways, but there's no way in hell I would have ever thought I'd be doing that. So here I am doing Tai Chi on the beach.
You got the yin and the yang.
Yeah. So age and experience and life teaches you about balance the hard way.
Yeah. I at this point now too try to integrate many modalities of movement. I want to be able to lift really heavy. I want to feel strong and capable in that area. But I also want to be agile and quick and light on my feet when I do gymnastics. And it's been actually about almost exactly a year when I started gymnastics again after having my daughter. And I'm tumbling like I did when I was 25. I'm like flying through the air. I part of me knew that I could do it again and get to that point, but being able to actually do it and have my body remember and do it with ease is so fun. And I want to be able to pick up both my kids at the same time and spin them around, climb up on the couch and get stuff high from the cabinets. I want to be able to do it all. And I should be able to.
The thing a lot of people don't realize is that maximum strength, really, you don't need to do it. And once you have it, you really don't have to do it that much to maintain it. Yeah. Particularly if you're doing something like gymnastics, where you're doing a lot of dynamic, relative strength stuff. So you really don't have to do, once you've had it and you have the technique down, and you don't even have to go that crazy with it. Your strength is going to maintain itself once you have it, But a lot of people think they have to go crazy in the weight room to maintain that, and you really don't.
Yeah. Yep.
So particularly you're doing something like gymnastics. Gymnastics in itself is strength training. I love gymnastics. So I'm actually building a gym on the beach here. That's why I moved here. And we're going to be starting with, basic parallel bars and things like that on the beach to get things started. So I'm going to be a giant bowling ball, on the parallel bars and all those things. It's going to be very entertaining. Just kind of like me going into the surf, I bet. Yeah. It's pretty funny. So yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see that gym. I'm going to come and visit for sure.
You need to. It's pretty awesome here. It is about an hour and a half from the capital. There is about 20 miles of private beach. It's incredibly awesome here. You can buy beachfront property for $50,000. Yeah, and nobody's bugging you. Like, you can walk your dog down the beach. You can drive your truck down the beach. You can, there's no one telling you where's your face diaper and all that kind of stuff. It's the complete opposite of California. There's no rules here. You'll see people with their whole family, a goat and a baby on a motorcycle on the front handlebars. So it's 6 people on a 125cc motorcycle. So
love it.
Why don't you tell people where they can get a hold of you and kind of what you're doing now, the services you've offered,
Definitely.
And what availability you have and all those things. I'd say Alex is great. She's worked with a number of the people I've worked with and is very practical, very practical. That's really the main thing is most of the clients that I've worked with, and I try to tell this to people, it's most of the clients are going to come into your gym. They're not trying to be a professional figure competitor. They're not trying to, they want to improve, but there's this thing called life that when you coach somebody, you have to give somebody something that's sustainable and is practical. And that's something you're very, very good at. Whereas a lot of coaches give people things that they can't do for the rest of their life, where most of the recommendations that you make to people and the conversations that you have with them to make behavior change, that's what really moves the needle for people in the long run.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. My intake form in itself is very informative for both parties because they're being asked questions that they never considered before, but that are integral pieces of the puzzle for me to understand. Sure. So you can find me at herbodysolutions.com. I still have an account on Instagram at Alex Fit Mama, but I haven't been on there in about 6 months, and I don't really plan on coming back anytime soon. Just not a place I want to spend my time right now, except for to follow friends like you. My website has 2 service options at this point in time. I have a training membership app that anybody could sign up to. I have a home version and a gym version, and it's a monthly membership for women. So very basic resistance training. Ideally, members are coming in with a background or having some experience of resistance training. General movement patterns is like the prerequisite. And you can make it as challenging as you'd want it to be. I do have custom clients on there as well. So if a client had something very specific they were working towards, then that is an option within the app as well. But all the signups are available on the website. And that's been an easy way for me to continue to work with clients in a lower, there's not as much hand holding in that sort of give clients the training and then they go and do it by themselves. But I'm here if they need me. And then I just opened up the nutritional coaching component. So that is very lifestyle based. It's a 3-month commitment. I generally, for the most part, only work with women, but occasionally I'll work with couples, like a husband and a wife, so that way they can support each other. But through the nutritional coaching part, we're really doing a full life audit. Like you said, I'm trying to look at their life, look at their demands, their priorities, and help them come up with realistic strategies to just make life easier and get them to feel as good as they can on a day-to-day basis so that they can gather the tools for themselves to use, today, tomorrow, and a year.
Sure.
A lot of what I do for women is help them identify the different seasons in their life within a year or 2 years so that they have tools for each season. Like we're just coming out of, the holidays, and the number of moms that I talk to coming out of Christmas break, the amount of stress that they were experiencing in those 2 weeks where their kids were home and they're trying to navigate the holidays and family and activities. It's like, we need a whole toolbox for those 2 weeks so that we come out of it and we're not like severely depleted and like coming up for air, Yeah. So actually from that idea, I had a lot of conversations with moms coming back to school of like, well, now what do we do? We're like coming out of this tailspin, just trying to like keep my feet on the ground. And everyone's talking about New Year's resolutions. I'm like, I don't have capacity to think about that right now. So I'm actually holding my first in-person event. It's not going to be till March because spring is like the best time I feel like to actually set new goals. Not now. Now's like a terrible time to do that, especially for most moms. So I'm excited. It's going to be in Sacramento. And once I have all that information available on the website, it will be there for those to see. And if anybody's local, I'd love for them to attend. But it's going to be on goal setting, and it's going to be on figuring out life audit priorities. What is your baseline? Help them establish what that baseline of self-care looks like so that they can go into the goal setting in a realistic way.
Yeah, and that's so important. That's so important. A lot of people, when I meet with people, they're like, well, I want this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, to get this, this, and this, you're going to have to give up this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, maybe I don't want this, this, and this.
Yep.
So understanding that you can't have it all, right? So what's your number one priority?
Yep.
And getting people to kind of work through that is very valuable. But it's great to chat with you. I'm really so glad we got to catch up. And I'm going to put all your links in the description below. It was great catching up with you, and I hope you have yourself a great day.
Thanks. Good talking to you too. Thanks.
You're welcome. Make sure you guys get outside today. You deserve it, and you need it.